Jam. I'm Sarah Cushman from 7 Days Newspaper, one of the co-founders and organizers of the Jam, along with the Vermont Technology Alliance. Thanks for joining us for the Building Digital Inclusion with the Vermont Digital Economy Project. We're really excited to hear from all of you today. Before we get started, I just want to take a minute to thank all our awesome Tech Jam sponsors that made this event possible. Dealer.com, My Web Grocer, C2, Biotech Instruments, Champlain College, Fairpoint Communication, Green Mountain Coffee Roasters, Logic Supply, Merchants Bank, the Vermont Technology Council, the State of Vermont, and the City of Burlington. We really couldn't have done it without them, so if you have a chance to go up to their booths and say hi and say thanks for this awesome event, please do so. Without further ado, here is the Vermont Digital Economy Project.
Thank you. So my name is Caitlin Lovegrove, and I'm the Network and Outreach Coordinator for the Vermont Digital Economy Project, which is a 18-month grant given to the Vermont Council on Rural Development with the prerogative of using digital tools to increase economic development and also disaster resilience. So we're focusing on some of the towns that were hit the hardest by Irene, and what we noticed was after the floods, both the 2011 floods and the Irene flooding, that the towns that had the best connection to online tools, the small businesses that had a website or a Facebook where they could communicate with their customers, or the towns themselves where the townspeople could talk to each other, they set up Facebook pages, nonprofits in town that could fundraise online, bounce back the fastest. And so what we're doing is we're putting all of these things in place so that in the case of another disaster, that economic resilience and development will be there. So we're doing a number of different projects for that, including one-on-ones and workshops with small businesses and nonprofits across the state. We're putting in Wi-Fi zones in downtown areas in small towns across the state. We're working directly with libraries, putting in what we call internet interns, who help people who may not be as digitally literate to learn more about some of the basics. So we're doing a number of different projects to really help make Vermont come up from the very low end. So here at Tech Jam, we're talking about the really high end of awesome technology that Vermont has, but we don't want to forget about all of the people who maybe just need some of those more basic steps, learning about social media, learning about online tools, which is why I've asked all of these wonderful people to be with us here today to talk a little bit about what it's like to maybe not be as digitally literate as most of us here at Tech Jam are. And just a couple stats before we get started. The Pew Center for Research comes out with lots of really interesting studies about the Pew Internet Center, about digital usage and internet usage. And right now, in the US, 15% of people, adults in the United States, don't use the internet at all. So that's almost a fifth of the population. And if you look at the population of Vermont, it's about 20% of Vermont who don't have, actually 30% in the entire country don't have broadband in their homes right now. So that's, again, more than a fifth of the country that doesn't have access to what we consider almost something that we take for granted. So when we're talking about people who, everything okay? Who may or may not be digitally literate, we have to remember that there's a lot of steps in the way, and we can't take what we know for granted. And I just want to take a quick poll in the audience here. How many people have worked with someone who has asked you about computers? Yeah. And have you ever gotten frustrated trying to help that person? That's right. And have they ever gotten frustrated trying to get help from you? Yeah. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And I'm just going to let these panelists introduce themselves. They all work with people and are very, very good at working with those people from the very bottom level to help them get that literacy that we all get frustrated trying to teach. So.
Are you? Okay. Hi, I'm Jennie Martin, and I'm an adult basic education teacher with Central Vermont Adult Basic Education in Randolph, which is down there in Orange County, very rural part of the state. And I teach, as I say, basic education, and now these days digital literacy is considered a basic skill. People need to know how to use computers to work, but even not to work, because they need to be able to claim their benefits, their unemployment benefits online. I get many people come in very frustrated because the Department of Labor has sent them off to fill out paperwork and claim their unemployment, and they don't even know where to start. So that's where I start with all this.
Hi, I'm Cheryl McMahon. I'm actually a librarian at the Cobley Library in Lyndonville, and for about 18 years now, we have taught a basic introductory workshop to hundreds of people, starting with GovNet and dial-up in one machine. We now have a computer lab. We have 14 machines, and they're full, busy all the time. And it's basically libraries fill a niche in leveling the playing field. We started out, a lot of people don't have computers at home. They don't have access at home. We're in the Northeast Kingdom, where the coverage and the use is very spotty. I mean, broadband isn't widely available, and it's a real economic unbalance in the area. So we serve as kind of an equalizer. And I see all the family hands going up. We get the people whose well-meaning children or grandchildren give them their old equipment, and then they come in and they want us to try and help them use it, and that type of thing. And very often we find that some families can teach other family members to use a computer, and other times the patience isn't there, you know, so we kind of fill a gap that way. But very much so, as far as like after a disaster or Irene, FEMA used us as a base, and to work out of there. The applications that we're seeing, the Vermont Health Connect, people are coming in and needing to sign on to that. So we deal with a lot of, there's frustration, you know, people are wanting to learn, and they're coming in and they're having to do it, file their unemployment benefits and things like that. So we work with people who are trying to build the skills as they're being told, this is the way you have to do this. So.
Hi, I'm Mary Kay Dreher. I work at the Community College of Vermont in Montpelier. I live in Randolph, Vermont as well. I, about 2.5 years ago, worked with some colleagues to develop a curriculum on for sort of basic computer skills teaching, sort of aimed at digital literacy. That entire curriculum is available currently on the Vermont website, but we have been using it to work with librarians, folks from the Department of Labor, just from whatever agency, to sort of help folks who are working on the front line with people who need help with basic computer usage. We sort of hold this train the trainer workshop using this curriculum. And I was telling Caitlin, and just a few minutes ago, last night we had an email from a woman in Ireland, and she was reporting a broken link in the curriculum. And she's a librarian in a rural community in Ireland, and she said, "Thank you so much for making these materials available to us." So I just thought it was so interesting that this is really, this is a global transitional space that we're all in, around moving from digitally illiterate to literacy, and that's sort of what this curriculum's aimed at.
How you doing? My name is Domenic Laurenzi, and I am an internet intern up in the Northeast Kingdom. I work at 3 libraries and have done so since May or June. I work at Derby Line, Derby, and Newport. And I get all different types of people coming in to look for jobs, collecting benefits, needing help with homework. You know, younger students are even having trouble with the computers. They just feel that they didn't need to learn them. You know, and they're seeing that in school they have to learn them. They have no choice. Now everything is going online. People, elderly, wanting to communicate with their family members who they don't see often. Everything is online now, and people are coming to me for help, and I absolutely love it, being able to watch them progress from nothing to now being able to install programs and just have conversations. I get Skyped with by some of my students, which is pretty interesting.
So I think we talked a little bit about sort of why digital literacy is so important. And obviously, being at Tech Jam, we all know the importance of digital literacy, but on a very sort of, from where you all sit, what do you tell these people when they come to you? Why do they need to know the internet? Why do they need to know a computer?
I find that that's the very first question they ask me. Why do I need to know this stuff? I don't want to know this stuff. I don't want to know about computers, and so I listen to that for a while, and usually, well, very often they're there because they're mandated to be there for some reason, for their job or to get a job. I actually try to show them kind of really neat things to do on the computer. The first thing I do is very rarely show them how to do, get their benefits or apply for a job. I say, let's find something cool that we can do. So I show them all the neat things that you can do with a computer, well, a lot of the neat things that you can do. And just to get them interested, to pull people in that way. I'm lucky, I know from the iConnect workshop that some of us went to, about 6 months ago. If you can get people interested in it in some way, they're adults, it's not a question of saying, well, this is what you have to do, get your notebook out and take notes. And it's like anything, if you start where somebody is, it's a better way to go than kind of enforcing stuff.
That's the way we structure our classes. It's people work on what interests them the most and finding that nugget that excites people. I had a woman come in yesterday who was trying to get supplementary medical forms filled out for her brother who's in a nursing home with Alzheimer's, and she's his power of attorney, and it's just this whole nightmare, and then she gets to the website and it just is a wall. She can't get past it. She can't get through it. She lives in a valley. It's going to cost her $400 for satellite connection. So she comes in totally frustrated. I hate this. I don't want to use it. I want to move. I don't want to sit. She stands up to use her computer. And so you're thinking, okay, well, how do we, in the information business, try and connect her with this information? So there's work-throughs that you do. But in the meantime, we got talking about, she has a grandson who is taking on a project of driving from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego, and he's going to blog while he's doing this. So she's like, well, I kind of would like to follow his thing. And did you know he already broke down on the Alcan Highway? So I got to find out how that comes out. So it is a matter of finding that little nugget that excites them. And people come in and they, without fail, say, I'm computer illiterate. They could have not even graduated from high school. They'll say, I'm computer illiterate, and then you get I'm just computer stupid. And I tell them, especially my retired folks, older folks, the ones who feel like their kids are just saying, oh, you're just ridiculous, you don't do this. They're actually ahead of the curve because they're in there trying to learn something about it. They went into the big stone, scary edifice of the library, and they may not have had good experiences in schools or whatnot, but they're trying it. They came in. I said, you're here. You're way ahead of the curve. And so sometimes it's just that to get them over that fear.
Yeah, and I think the work that we've done, and it might, please look at it, is sort of aimed at training the trainer. And so recognizing the different layers of this issue for folks that, and I think one thing we've discovered as we've continued to work with this material is how rapidly changing it is, so that even for folks like us on the front lines in the libraries, library interns, et cetera, even at the Community College of Vermont, we're always having to sort of look ahead. Frequently, in my experience at CCV, I find that students are just amazingly advanced in some of these pieces. And so it's generational, but it's also around access to the tools themselves, and also just geographical access to speed. So it's really important work. And I always think about my grandmother who, had that phone sitting in one space, this heavy black phone in the dial.
The rotary phone.
I know. So, and I don't know if we're going to discuss this at all. I think we might briefly, but just recognizing too how there's this fine line of walking when you're working with folks with computer skills around not patronizing, but also recognizing that fear can get in the way. And so these are some of the pieces that we hold up aside from just the literacy pieces. So.
Yeah, and not only fear, I mean, they're afraid. They want to learn, but they're afraid to learn. They think they're going to break it all the time.
It's going to blow up.
All the time they think they are
gonna
going
blow
to
up.
break it. I keep telling them you're not going to break it. I had one guy come in and take the mouse, had no idea, and just put it over his head. Like, he had no idea what to do with it. All right. Great. We have our work cut out for us. It's all right. Just be patient with them. But I'd like to start off with something that they enjoy. So I'll start off by asking, what do you like? If a lady likes to cook, we look up recipes. We look up different variations for those recipes. If a guy likes sports or hunting, I show him different websites and how to navigate it. People come in and wanting to know how to do things. How to do anything. Do an internet search. What's a Google? What's the difference between different browsers? What is a browser? I'm just trying to take them from these, they know absolutely nothing, to, you have to remember you're so advanced, so you have to teach them at a very slow pace. So starting someplace that they feel comfortable is the best way. And don't be afraid to, you can jump ahead a little bit, but don't be afraid to, step back and slow everything down for them. I know when I was first learning computers, I needed to learn. I needed everything slowed down. I still need stuff slowed down for me. And I'm still learning. We're all learning.
You can't assume anything. You can, I've seen people sitting there and, they get the deer in the headlights look, and they've typed their name, and they're just sitting there, and they're very quiet. They won't say anything. They won't raise their hand. And I'll say, a question. They've got that, you've got a question look on their face. And how do I get to the next line? It's as simple as the enter key. You cannot assume anything. And what you're working with, I'm sure, also is iPhones, iPads, Kindles,
all of
Nooks, all these things. And people come in and they're like, I got this for Christmas. How do I run it?
Yep. I had that
all the
recently
time.
too.
What
brand
can
new
I
Kindle.
what can I do on this? So it's coming at us as we have to learn on our feet all the time as well,
Yeah.
because there are so many devices that people are accessing the information on as well.
Yeah. And another thing with doing just an internet search. People are like, well, I want to know this. Well, type exactly that into Google and it will tell you. It will give you exactly that. It's not going to give you anything else. It's going to give you exactly what you ask it for. A computer's going to do only what you tell it to do and nothing more.
I have a group of ladies in Randolph that I call my golden girls. They're all over 80. And one of them actually had just passed away, but she was 91 years old. They came together and said, we'd like to know how to use a computer. So I got them set up. They've all got Facebook accounts. They've all got email accounts. They don't know the difference between Facebook and email quite often, and they say, I want my face mail now. But they can do it. They've learned to do it. They get pictures of their grandkids, their great-grandkids. They've learned to upload photographs. They come in now. They're so blasé. They sit down, and I say, what are you going to do today? Oh, I think I want to look up some knitting patterns. I want to knit a sweater. And on there, it's really quite amazing. And I've loved working with these women because it started off that I was having to teach people job-related skills, like how to use spreadsheets. And these women aren't looking for work. They just want to have fun. So it's really a blast when they come in and go, oh, let's check my Facebook. Let's see what's going on. So
You want to be connected.
Yeah,
because
they do.
there is such a digital divide, and a haves and a have-not, but just to be connected with that. And if they're going, you gas your car, you go to the grocery store, scanners, this computers, they're like, I don't want anything to do with computers. I'm like, you're using it all the time.
Yes.
It's you go to the
You're
bank,
doing
you
it.
go to an ATM machine, you are using computers all the time, so you
Yep.
might as well find out the fun and interesting things
Sure.
to do with it.
Rather
And
than-
then they just don't feel as disconnected. But literally, I've had people who are so relieved that the computer did not actually blow up.
Yeah.
Literally did not blow up. I kid you not. That is the level of fear that you deal with
Oh,
sometimes.
absolutely. I have an ESL class as well of teaching English as a second language, and I got those students into you know, checking out the town they come from, unpronounceable place in Mexico, one of those places that starts with an X, you know, and you couldn't ever manage to pronounce it. But they look it up and they go, oh, wow. One student of mine, she was looking at the town and she said, oh my God, that's my grandmother's house. How did it get on the computer? So, well,
Google.
yeah. Yeah, it's connecting people with something they know or something they enjoy. And then suddenly it doesn't seem such a big scary thing anymore, you know, suddenly it's not that monster that sits on the desk and looks at you.
I think we've touched a little bit on some of the bigger stumbling blocks, but is there anything else you'd like to add to what stops people from wanting to learn or being able to learn, or what is that stumbling block that they face?
Well, I think when people come to you in the library, it's a little different from when they come to me, I think, because I know that a lot of people go to Randolph Library for one-off things. If they come to me, they're more likely to be going to do a course. You know, they have to learn a computer, to use a computer for their job or something. A stumbling block. I think people think it's not for them. They're not smart enough. They're not wealthy enough. They couldn't afford to buy a computer. And then when you point out they're available at the library, you know, you can find public access computers. I think there's a lot of that thinking, you know, it's like skiing or sailing. People think, oh, that's for people better off than me. That's not
Well, they're used
my
to
thing.
paying for
Yeah.
instruction, or they have had, you know, bad experiences with institutional type
Yeah.
facilities, such as school. School might have been a horrible experience
Yeah.
for some, you know, and on the other side, I have people who are highly educated, say, I've had older folks that are like engineers. Engineers are the worst, because if they don't know every single thing there is to know about it before they sit down and put one finger on a key, then it's not happening for them. And you can't know everything about it. It would be like knowing a river. It's going to change a little bit every day. The terrain changes a little bit every day. The rocks are in different places, so it's a leap of faith to do it. And I think that stops people sometimes. Or they just, somewhere along the line, somebody told them they couldn't learn. And that is something that we have to overcome a lot.
And another issue that I've seen, and I anticipate, we were discussing this earlier, when the stakes are high. So if someone needs to fill out an unemployment form, or potentially a FEMA form, or now maybe Health Connect. So when the stakes are high to access a resource that people need, you might, and we discuss this in our iConnect workshops, see a quicker rise to frustration because there's more to lose. So that might be a barrier, and we've discussed just how important it is to kind of stay on top of these systems. We had an experience in iConnect workshop where we were asking folks to go online and just look at a Walmart application. And the Walmart application actually has 75 personal questions in it. So can you imagine the stakes of that for somebody who might not be fully comfortable using the computer, then giving up all of this information? So there are some things about it that you kind of have to, actually, I wonder, what is the purpose of this? So that's a barrier, I think.
Well, the frustration, the overwhelming, computers are very overwhelming for people. You know, the internet is never ending. People, they get overwhelmed. They expect to know it overnight, and it's not going to happen. You're not going to learn anything overnight. I've had a lady come in, and she was doing wonderful, doing absolutely great. She had never even turned a computer on, never looked at one, never opened one. She had no clue, and she was doing absolutely wonderful, but she felt that she should have known it quicker.
Very, very hard on themselves.
You know, she was way too hard on herself. She was doing great. You know, and she comes back with her husband, and they do wonderful. They teach each other at home now. You know, they'll play solitaire together, or free cell, or the spider solitaire. You know, I mean, they absolutely love it together now. You know, and they'll be able to Skype with their friends in Florida. You know, and she got him into Skype, which is pretty cool. Right? It's just they get overwhelmed way too quickly, and it's hard when they get frustrated. It's hard for you to not get frustrated. But you just have to remain cool and calm. Stay at ease. if they see you getting frustrated, they're more apt to become overwhelmed.
I've had someone who was pretty much close to going somewhat postal over a Family Dollar application that took an hour and a half. And he was on a phone at the same time being evicted from his home. And it just combined to make a not very calming situation for him. And it was just a matter of saying, okay, just step back. I offered him a cup of coffee thinking, okay, is this caffeine going to put him over the edge? But it was just that little humanizing bit to say, wow, you're really having a rough day. So he's trying to use the technology, make the machine work, not get evicted, and get employment all at the same time. So that it's very challenging for people.
That sounds like a big experience without the computer part thrown in there.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
a bad day all around.
Rough day enough, but
Yep.
Oh, people's passwords, they get so upset when they cannot remember their password. And they can't. I have a guy who comes in every week and he changes his password and has no idea why the computer at the library doesn't remember his password. Because you changed it. I'll say to him, so have you changed your password lately? He goes, yes. Well, did you put it into the computer? No, I don't remember it. Why? Because I don't remember my password.
did you write
Well,
it down?
did you write your password? Exactly. Did you write your password down? No, why would I do that? The computer should remember it. No, it doesn't work that way. And he thinks that his home computer should remember it. The one at the library should remember it. The one in California should know it. Every computer should know his password.
Or they think the librarian should remember it. I've helped people get email accounts, and I don't see them for 6 or 8 months, and they'll come in, and I had one woman, Barry types her username, and she turns to me, what's my password? I have no idea. 8 months ago, I helped you set this account up, so write it down.
We actually, the internet interns now have sheets that we can write down everything that we go through in a lesson
Yeah,
with them
I do
now,
that.
including little slots for their usernames, their passwords, security questions, the website that that username and password is for, just to kind of make my job a little easier. It'll help them out, but it's really helping me a whole lot.
Does anyone in the audience have a question they'd like to pose to our panel?
Every time you talk about July, the first question that always comes to my mind is the cost of the technology for the people to use. I mean, Vermont is doing a wonderful thing with these interns in the library, being able to help someone when they come in. But, again, you talk about the rural areas of Vermont where there is no internet connection. Or the ones that I worry about are the children that are growing up in homes where their parents can't afford to purchase that, which for some, it's not a lot, big number, they're a little bit cheaper, but still, $300 for a Windows PC, and that's the Windows PC. My question always comes to mind is what can we do to make that smaller? Is there, I'm a huge open source thing, is there a way that we can grab these older computers and get them back out to people at maybe 50? Or, what can we do to make it so that every home can have a computer? And maybe it's just because of my history and everything in Lovegrove, so I really think that is possibly the answer is pulling that off. Because, we could take those older computers that, companies, they replace them all the time. That's what they do. They need to stay on top. I replaced mine regularly. It's like, it really wouldn't hurt a lot of us to be able to, some sort of system like that, I think, seems to be a piece that a lot of people just don't seem to talk about as much. I think there's just as much.
Sure. So the question was about cost, and actually, if you guys don't mind, I want to jump in a little bit and just talk about what we've been doing to address that as the grant. First of all, our predecessors in Vermont, so it was a 2-year grant that came before this, and part of that budget was to actually provide computers to community centers and libraries in various towns, as well as to schools. So a lot of schools in rural Vermont areas, at least, and obviously this doesn't translate to across the country, received some, at least, technology through that grant. Now, we're not giving away any more equipment with our current grant. We're trusting on places like libraries to have publicly accessible computers, like schools, which in Vermont at least do have accessible computers that people can come in and use. But we're also, for instance, putting in Wi-Fi zones and Wi-Fi hotspots in downtown areas. So for instance, the town of Bethel in Vermont had one pizza restaurant, and people who couldn't afford or didn't have access to internet in their houses used to drive to and park in front of the pizza restaurant to get online. And so what we did through the grant is we created a Wi-Fi zone that covers the entire downtown area. So now that the guy who lives above the pizza shop in Bethel doesn't have to worry about people idling outside of his shop, in the middle of the night, because they can go park anywhere in town. They can go to the park and sit and get online. And yes, they still do need a device, but how many people do you know who don't have a smartphone at this point? It's almost there. And there are other places, for instance, in Bethel, there's a one-to-one program, I think that's what it's called, where every student in the 8th grade was given a laptop to use that they can take home. So there are a number of different ways in which the technology is being spread out, distributed. And just one more point, and this one's from personal experience, is my grandmother. We gave her an old iMac, the round ones, the really old school ones, and she had such trouble using that because by the time she got it, it was slow. So she'd click a button and nothing would happen, and she couldn't understand why 3 seconds later something would show up. And we ended up getting rid of that and giving her an iPad because it's new, it's fast, and it's simple. So the idea of giving away old technology, from my perspective, is probably not. I don't know. I put it to the panelists.
I think you're right about that, particularly giving old technology. An old computer, like an old anything, is frustrating. It's not as fast. It may be better than nothing, but, it's still, often people will come into my office and say, well, I've got this laptop, and I can't make it do what I want it to do. Can you fix it? Well, I'm not a computer technician, I can't fix that. The other thing is, a lot of big companies do give, when they upgrade, they do give. We've received from MetLife, for example, several times we've received computers to use in our learning centers so that we have more stations. But they all have to be, worked on, and they all have to be in good working conditions. So I think you wanted to say something about old equipment, yeah?
I have to say,
Go on.
I got an 8-year-old laptop running a Linux distro on it, and I didn't think it was a brand new laptop.
Right.
So it really also depends. I was at one company that was still handing out XP on 1 gig, and it was kind of like, what are you doing with these people? It's like, put something else on that would run it. So that's where the mix and match that I always, it's like, you're right, there is a point where it's non-salvageable, but the same size.
I guess it's not really the age of the piece of equipment so much as how badly it's been used, how much stuff has been put on it, how much stuff has been downloaded, and can you clean all that off and make it a viable piece of equipment?
You're right. Somebody can use it.
Yeah.
And it's finding things that, the internet is such a memory hog as far as, in the videos and the graphics and whatnot. A lot of the older ones don't have the memory to run it, and that get the blue screen of death, and that just frustrates people. So, it is a matter of, I think we're asked to be computer techs more and more. At a library, people will come in and say, I can't do this, and I can't, and we're helping them download virus protections or open office or things like that, and connecting them with freeware. And resources like that is helpful, Malware Bytes and Open Office, if they don't have Word or Publisher or something like that, seems to help a little bit. But a lot of times we do butt up against the fact that, there's just, they're running XP or something earlier and trying to run things that are written for something much a later operating system, and so we do run into frustrations with that. But we have received at the library, primarily our whole lab was funded by the Gates Foundation through several rounds of grants. We do receive equipment from well-meaning businesses that do it, and it's a mixed blessing. You know, sometimes like, here, we give you this laptop for your bookmobile and everything's great, but if it doesn't work, if it's not functional, then it's a boat anchor. So, you know, we have to balance that.
The Community College of Vermont actually has a program called the Frankenstein, and they take computers, they refurbish them, and they give them away to students who can't afford computers. It's on. Yeah, and all the libraries I work at also will take, if they get new computers, they take the old computers that they have and they will sell them for $10 to anyone in the community who wants one. You know, so I wipe them clean and they get rid of them.
And the Frankenstein, sometimes, right, guys, we have laptops available. There's usually a waiting list for those, but it's a great program.
It's been very successful.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Yeah.
I've got a couple questions, actually. One, we're not actually from Vermont. We're from a ridiculously poor county, like right next to you guys, Franklin County. And the three of us, literally, even this guy over here, we represent like half the coders in our county. You know, there's like one guy who's a backwoods with a weird truck, you know, and, you know, he's one of those old like punch card engineers, you know. So anyways, so do you guys have any New York counterparts that you work with? And if you don't, I mean, have you guys ever considered, you know, I guess going into like talks with groups in New York that'd be interested in trying to replicate these systems? Like I know sometimes Plattsburgh and Vermont do, you know, kind of idea melds and, you know, sharing and, you know, things like that. So
Our grant is primarily Vermont-based, so we're just within the state, but I don't know if, you know, within library partnerships or...
All of the iConnect material is available online for free. And in that material, it's wonderful because there's an agenda. You can actually use that curriculum to set up workshops, train the trainer. The entire manual is there with all of the graphics. So, and it's also interestingly available in a Word in Word form, so you can edit it. So, I mean, that crosses borders, obviously. I don't know if we would ever conduct an iConnect workshop
There
in
must
New
be
York.
a New York State community college system, though, is there not? They don't do anything like that?
They're not as cool as us.
No,
We're awesome.
we are.
We're so awesome.
But I don't know if there was maybe an agency you guys
We got it
already
going
work
on.
Libraries, I mean, have you worked with libraries at all?
Yes, yeah, you know, our libraries are doing the kind of the older stuff. We've got our lead library has I think 4 computers now, which is a very big step up from they were 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But they're running classes where, you know, teaching how to like turn things on.
And what is it that you'd like to do?
We have, you know, our county has very low computer comprehension. I mean, very, very. It's actually kind of weird. It's almost like it's switched over to where people are now becoming sort of smartphone proficient, but only in really basic tasks, but they can't do anything functional on an actual desktop or laptop. I don't know if you guys experience the same thing from mine, you know, but it's, I don't know, it's just a weird kind of shift, you know. But I was just wondering if you guys have any programs that you could share with New York or anything that you know, go to, or to kind of take what you guys do and bring that to our community.
You might check, there must also be an adult basic education network in Vermont, you know, for people. I mean, in addition to working with people who need to learn computers, I work with people who need to get GEDs and who want to get ready to go to college and things like that. And you might just look online and see if there must be, I'm sure there is, an ABE system in New York, and they may be able to help you with something like that. Yeah, I guess just to check out the kinds of things that we all do
Yeah, the resources
in New York.
are, and I don't know, Caitlin, if we can provide links but the resources are available. At least the resources that we've all created and work with.
You might have to do some digging to find some stuff for New York specifically, but I'm sure it's there.
Yeah, I think it was there too. Big state.
So, yeah, it's a huge state.
Are there other questions from the audience? Yeah.
I work with a lot of students who are run the gamut. What do you think is the one tool that anybody on the gamut could benefit from. You know, there's some people who are the smartphone proficient, but totally clueless with a PC, and then there's people, you can see my 7-year-olds here playing with a phone. So, I mean, there's so many different areas, but what do you think is like the one tool that anybody can benefit from that, you know, could really get out there to people?
You mean one tool that does everything? I mean, I'm thinking now that to my students, the smartphone technology is it with the younger people. They don't have, half of them don't have homes anyway, let alone a desk to put a computer on. And they don't seem to, laptops seem to be considered to be big clunky things these days by young people. You know, that whatever they have or don't have, they can all whip out their smartphone and they'll say, well, I can text you, or you know, I'm not real good texter myself. But that's, in my experience, that's the one thing that people have. And it's, of course, it's very different to use the smartphone than a desktop computer. I've only just got a smartphone about 2 months ago, and I'm still struggling a bit with it. What do you guys think?
I think you're right. Coming from a library perspective, I mean, when I started working in libraries, I thought, wow, I'm going to get to work with books. I so rarely work with books, but people need the basic literacy skills, and I don't care what they're doing. The first thing I would teach in anything for introduction to computers was a basic word processing document, because if they don't have the basic skills first, you know, to put a cursor into a window or to scroll, you know, to scroll the basic things like that. So I still, you know, of course, as a librarian, I'm going to promote early literacy every chance I get, but they need basic reading skills too, as well, you know, before you get to whatever device you're getting to. And it's critically important.
Yeah, I would say, either a good smartphone, all right? There's a big difference between a smartphone and a good smartphone. I just broke my phone last week, and I had the dumbest smartphone on the planet. Drove me nuts for 4 days before I decided to get a new one. Or a good tablet. There are some people actually over at the convention who are using Google Voice to enable free phone calls. So even if you can't afford a cell phone plan, you can afford free phone calls. So to have the tablet, being able to work on a Word document, you know, send text messages, check email, and now make a phone call too, that's all you really need, especially for students.
Yeah. What resources are available to get people to connect to the program?
I say this because I work in the veterinarian field, and I get people that have access to funding to help their animals, but don't have access to process the paperwork like what you do. You help them do that. And a lot of the clients are living in areas like Hardwick or somewhere out in the backwoods that don't have internet, they don't have a computer, they don't have a connection. And I say to them, well, that's fine, go to your local library. Connect with your people that can help you. You can do that? Absolutely. Go to the people that are there to help you. But they don't seem to even realize that a library or a school can help them get the information they need.
Because it hasn't in the past. They've had bad experiences with it. We see this over and over again, and they're almost afraid to come in to a place like a library because it reminds them of that big brick building, the school, and they may not have made out very well there. And if they have lower literacy skills to begin with, that's going to be challenging. You know, libraries are for other people; those are for smart people. They're not for people like me. So, again, we try and really be an equalizer for, you know, and be approachable and be agreeable when people come in. I mean, we've had people who've come in and wanted directions how to build a still. Well, we don't judge. We get them directions how to build a still, and off they go, happy as a clam. But hey, there's a good connection they made with that big brick building, you know? It's like, gee, well, maybe that'll work for me too.
So for people in the community that are service providers that run into other folks that don't have these connections, how do we point them? Is there pamphlets, is there phone numbers?
We certainly have
Now,
adult basic
like I said,
education.
a lot of
does.
these people have absolutely no idea they could enter a library or enter any sort of system that is there to help them.
That's
There's
a
people
good-
out to help,
very
and they
good
just have no clue. They've not seen posters, they've not seen, is there some sort of information we can point them to? And if not, maybe that's something to look forward to in the future.
One thing that comes to my mind is the Vermont 211 is usually a very good resource for any sort of information that you want. You just dial 211 and they'll tell you anything. So that's definitely a list of services beyond just literacy or computer services that is very, very helpful. And you don't need the internet to access that. The other thing that I'm thinking is because Vermont is very town by town based, you know, some towns may do a great job of outreach with their libraries or their adult education centers, and some towns not so much. And unfortunately, it's really sort of almost a town by town thing as to.
Some libraries have one lady that's there 2 afternoons a week, and others have a full staff and websites and Facebook pages. And, you know, Vermont has more libraries per capita than any state in the nation. So they're out there, and that is our mission, every library's mission, and their job is to connect people with information in whatever format that they need it in. If it's not a book, okay, maybe it's a website, maybe it's an online database, but to connect them with that information. So just try and, you know, in the Northeast Kingdom, we've worked very hard, and we're very fortunate that the agencies and the schools primarily collaborate on this type of thing and do a lot of information sharing, like resource fairs and things like that, where we share information and like Head Start promotes our story hours and things like that. But I would just keep working with the local libraries and like the adult ed agencies in town, because they get out a lot of information. I mean, we do for them. It's like, hey, we'll have your brochures at the library, and we're happy to give them out. Would you mind giving out our information too? So.
Actually, that is interesting to me because I go around to doctors' offices and libraries and put our flyers out, but I never would have thought of going to a veterinarian's office and doing it. And that's a good idea because people sit there, you know.
Laundromat.
Yeah.
Their local laundromat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's the type of people that the people that aren't having the access to the technology and need the help are the type of people that are going to be in a laundromat, in the grocery store. That's where they're going to be looking for it, on a bulletin board. Because they don't have the internet, they're not going to look, oh, where can I get help for cooking my pie today? They're not going to look for it on the internet because they don't have it to begin with.
We parked our bookmobile for 5 days at the Caledonia County Fair.
Yep.
And all these agencies gave out information on quitting smoking. Hello, have you been to a fair lately? I mean, what a great place to give out non-smoking stuff. And gave books out to kids, and it was just, it's a nice connection to see that kind of traditional thing in a non-traditional setting. It just lets people think about it. It's like, hey, that might be for me too. It's not just for them, it might be for us too.
So we're just about out of time, but I want to have just a couple takeaways on, you know, when we do go home and we are working with people who have trouble, you know, working through a computer. What are some, you know, very basic takeaways, just a couple of points that you want to throw out there for us all to take home and say, okay, so next time, you know, my aunt tells me that she can't see my pictures, I don't get really frustrated.
Patience, and be approachable. And our motto is there are no stupid questions. People say, oh, I have this dumbest question. There aren't any, you know?
Yeah.
It may not even have been a question a minute ago, but some technology came along that made it.
Exactly.
So that it needed a question. There are no dumb questions. Just go ahead and ask.
Some people aren't going to be as advanced as you, so what you might be like, really? Are you serious? You're asking me that? Because you've been doing it for so long. They have no idea.
Yeah.
So
Can't
just
judge.
take a step back, be patient with them. If they don't understand it the first, second, third, fourth time, don't get frustrated, don't get overwhelmed. Stay patient. I know it's very difficult to do especially working with family members. I mean, I also work at the Community College of Vermont too, and I get asked the same questions over and over again by the same people, week in and week out, and it's just, okay, You kind of know what, they start walking up to the desk, you know what's coming. You get up and you go and you help them. And it's just, you have to be patient with them.
And one thought I have in doing this work, a tiny success will give confidence for a bigger success. So if it means finding a recipe, then add on to that, because ultimately maybe the goal is filling out an application. So, and also in our materials, there's a piece on pedagogy in working with adults, specifically around these issues. So there's some, tips. I think we all sort of innately know it, but it's nice to be reminded of those things.
Also, if I could add one little thing, don't just show them how to do it, make them do it. So if it's downloading a picture and putting that picture into a different folder, make them do it, and make them do it again and again and again until it becomes so repetitive and they just do it without even thinking.
I think we've come up with a lot of tips. I hope it's been helpful for everyone. Definitely sort of be patient, understand that there's a lot of fear there, understand that the people who are there are not necessarily stupid in any way. They might have PhDs, and that makes it more frustrating for them. And then,
in many ways, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing as an adult to have to say, I don't know how to do this.
They'll tell you, my 4-year-old grandchild can do this so much better than me.
But anybody over, I don't know what I want to say, 20, 30, we've all had to learn. We've all been that person. We've all been the person that had to ask more than once. In fact, here in the audience is my husband, who taught me to use a computer 20 years ago, and I can't tell you how many times I would say, help, help, oh, the screen's gone black, I've lost my document. And he'd go, oh, up, come, get up, and then he would find it for me, and eventually I got to be able to do it myself. But I do remember those days of just staring at the thing in rage and thinking hateful thing.
It's always wonderful, you've kind of arrived or you had a success. I'll see one of my students is leaning over and helping another one do something.
Yeah.
They become the teacher, and
yeah.
that's a very rewarding time, and you've kind of turned a corner a little bit, and they're
Sure.
so proud to be able to do that. So it's worth doing.
thank you all for coming. I hope it was helpful.
Thank you, dear, for doing that.
Thank you for coming.